welcome to SVG-TV News for Monday, 8th October 2018. I am Investor Boynes with the details. Businesses and traders from St. Vincent and the Grenadines begin paying again for their goods in Trinidad using U.S. currency. This after the government removed U.S. currency restrictions it had imposed on traders doing business in the two-island republic. At a recent news conference, Minister of Finance Camila Gonzalez said the restrictions were placed due to the problems faced by traders of agricultural products.
Currency. So we did not let businesses here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines pay their bills in US dollars in Trinidad and Tobago without approval from the Ministry of Finance, and sometimes that approval was denied. And it created some challenges in the business community, because the fact of the matter is, to be completely honest, is that there are businesses in Trinidad and Tobago that don't want to trade in TT dollars because of the exchange rate and various other issues that I think most of us know. And it was creating some inconvenience, but we asked the business, we had repeated meetings with the Chamber of Commerce and individual businesses, and we asked them to hold strain, because this action was getting the attention of the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago.
The finance minister said the restrictions were lifted after it came to the attention of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank and the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago. He said both parties have agreed to a tentative deal to have the matter resolved.
What this means is that we got their attention, they engaged the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and now the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago and the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, because of this action, have reached a tentative deal on how we are going to settle this matter without placing the burden of currency controls on businesses here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Every I is not dotted and every T is not crossed, but having spoken to the governor of the central bank, Timothy Antwine, and having regard to how much the businesses in St. Vincent and the Grenadines have held strain in this inconvenience, I have signed the appropriate documents to rescind the Exchange Control Act conditions on trading with Trinidad and Tobago.
The finance minister said he anticipates a resolution to the problem which the traders are facing very soon. He also thanked the business community for what he called a show of patriotism during the period of currency restriction.
Thank all of the business sector in St. Vincent and the Grenadines for their patriotism, because there were incidents where people, to buy something in US dollars was 7% cheaper than to buy it in TT dollars, and we were telling them they had to use TT dollars if they were buying in Trinidad and Tobago, and they could have passed those costs on to Vincentian consumers, and because of their cooperation they did not. They ate that price difference, that currency exchange difference. It was a heroic act by many of the businesses here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I want to thank them. I want to single out Massey Stores and Facey Trading and General Hardware for the very strong work that they did in that regard. I want to thank them and all other businesses for their patriotism in that regard, and I want to say that and to the traders and the traffickers, I want to say that we anticipate a good resolution of this matter in a matter of days, and I will, when it's all completed, I will explain the nature of that resolution.
Minister of Agriculture Subota Caesar is encouraging local stakeholders to use the knowledge and skills of international marijuana experts when the local medical marijuana industry gets going. Minister Caesar was speaking at a luncheon on Friday which brought together a wide cross-section of business and farmers organizations to discuss issues related to the possible creation of a marijuana industry. Caesar said that while there is a lot of effort being made to engage with the traditional farmers to get their input, the international experts must not be ignored.
If we close ourselves out totally from this wealth of experience, and this experience is diverted to places like St. Lucia and Barbados, if they decide to go the way of cannabis, we can see that our industry locally could suffer from a very slow takeoff. But in saying that, I want to note that the points raised by Hugh Stewart is one of the main reasons why we are here today, to ensure that when the industry begins, persons locally cannot say that they did not have an opportunity to be engaged.
Minister Caesar said that many of the strains of marijuana locally are still untested, and as such, many international experts will be bringing their own strains for productions. He said this is necessary in the beginning, as the medicinal industry must be guided by strict scientific evidence.
I am aware that a lot of the strains that we have here, that we cultivate here, are not tested. We don't know exactly what are the strains we have here. And that is what is going to make a lot of our strains here not usable for the most part, because it's a medicine you're making. It's medication. It has to be tested. It has to pass not only your personal assessment, but it has to be accredited and it has to be evaluated against international benchmarks. It's not something you're going to do and hope that it works for someone from Lomans, but it may not work for someone from Sharps. So the studies would have to be done, and the specific strains would have to be streamlined by the persons who are coming in.
The Minister of Agriculture said the industry will bring with it many possibilities, including the creation of a parallel industry with other herbs.
To further, that some persons are coming here investing in medicinal cannabis, not only for the creation of pure cannabis medication. I spoke to one investor and he's looking at other herbs in the country. I can't list them because it was a private conversation, but he's looking at other things that have significant proven medicinal purposes to add with the cannabis. So we can also see that there will be parallel industries in agriculture also developing.
Taiwan's contributions to St. Vincent and the Grenadines is expected to expand with a number of initiatives which are in the pipeline. This is according to Minister of Health Luke Brown, who was speaking last Friday at a lecture organized by the Life Hill Foundation. Brown was responding to a question on whether or not there are investment opportunities open to Taiwan.
Now, I don't know if the investment which is coming up now in hotels is going to see that kind of partnership. But I think I remember the sentiment being expressed that we need to have these kind of joint arrangements that would... Well, I just heard a whisper from a gentleman in the crowd who said that there's going to be a Taiwanese contingent or delegation coming to St. Vincent for the Everything Vinci Expo in a little while. So that might itself be the very making of the investment opportunities to which you have referred.
Meanwhile, the minister, asked to explain what he thought was the reason why the New Democratic Party wanted to sever ties with Taiwan, responded that it could be due to the lack of knowledge, but he did not see the rationale behind their stated intention. Persons who were engaged in the question and answer segment of the discussion said they support Taiwan and gave their opinions.
Obviously studied the question of whether or not there should be any change of allegiance in the case of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I mean, I start by the premise that we have 40 years of shared history together, which is not something that I think we should consider throwing down the drain, you know, even if there seems to be some attractive proposition dangled before us. We've seen the numbers in terms of the grants. We see that there were over $100 million worth of grants in the period. We've seen the numbers in terms of the soft loans. We see what the future holds. We see that they're interested in a continuing, frank, and honest engagement with St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And I think that out of a respect for all these considerations, and out for a respect for the principle that for all practical purposes, anyone who really wants to open their eyes and see would recognize that Taiwan is a separate political entity from mainland China.
Students at the Dr. J.P. Eustace Secondary School today got the opportunity to learn more about depression, suicide and substance abuse. This as part of activities being hosted by the Mental Health Rehabilitation Center in commemoration of Mental Health Week being observed under the theme, Young People and Mental Health. As part of today's awareness exercise, a team comprising a social worker, a counselor and a staff nurse visited various secondary schools to sensitize students on issues of mental health. Social worker at the Mental Health Rehabilitation Center, Roselle Solomon, whose team was at the J.P. Eustace Secondary School, said the activity will help the students gain a better understanding of mental health.
The earlier we teach persons about any issue, it's always better, as they're able to internalize and therefore help to understand the situation. So we're starting with our schools, our secondary schools, and we will be definitely taking it further into more schools because that's plan B of what we are doing. We're tackling some schools in this round because obviously it's just one day and it's just not many of us, so we are trying to in our next phase to tackle as many schools as possible.
Solomon said the activity also serves to educate the students on what services are available to those who are suffering from mental illnesses.
Trying to do is to educate persons to understand their own functioning and to understand when things are not right, not just within themselves but their family members, their schoolmates, their teachers and the students. So we're trying to make sure that everyone as much as possible gets the information so that when it is that you're in a situation where you're not able to cope well and things are not going right, you're able to identify certain signs and symptoms and seek help, whether at mental health center, at the hospital, through their school counselors, their principals, teachers, because we all need to be cognizant that mental health definitely is on the table and we need to take care of ourselves.
Solomon said their aim is to help to create a comfortable society for persons with mental illnesses.
These things before, this is not the first time that we have gone to schools. Schools have invited us. Last year, the theme for mental health was we focused on the workplace, and we did go around to as many entities as possible, giving them the information on how to preserve their own mental health and how organizations can help their employees with their own mental health, and to make sure that we all have a comfortable society. We want to make sure that when we go to work, when we go to school, that we are comfortable and we are accepted, and that's what we are trying to do here.
Principal of the J.P. Eustace Secondary School, Suzette Cupid Ferdinand, welcomed today's activities at the school hosted by the Mental Health Center. She said this will allow students to be able to better cope with some of the problems they are facing.
A lot of things that our students are dealing with, and sometimes they really do not understand what is happening. So having the mental health persons here could help to clarify some of the feelings they have and some of the actions they want to take sometimes. They're dealing with depression and suicide, and lately we had issues in our country where school children took to the path of suicide. So having the knowledge of what it is, how to deal with depression issues and other problems that they may have, can really help to prevent our students from taking such drastic measures in the future. So I'm happy that they're here to inform and enlighten our students on such issues.
One of two recently constructed satellite warehouses will be open tomorrow, October 9th at Noel in Sandiby. The warehouses were constructed to ensure that in the event of impact from natural disasters, there is enough food initially to feed affected persons. The facilities were designed by the local architectural firm TVA Consultants Limited and constructed by Franco Construction Limited and Williams Electronic Services. TVA also supervised the construction of the warehouses at a combined total cost of around 308,000 EC dollars. Tomorrow's opening is scheduled to begin at 2 p.m. The local office of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank is giving the local population the opportunity to learn more about how to spend and invest their money through a number of activities this month to observe Financial Information Month. The ECCB's resident representative Elrita Miguel told SVG-TV News in an interview that the bank will be using technology that is locally available to help persons to be finance ready. This information will be passed on through a business symposium organized by the ECCB next week.
We want persons to become aware of what is happening, and these innovations, the fintech innovations, it's not something, as I said earlier, that we can avoid. It's here to stay, and here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we need to become a part of it and become aware of it. Also, the ECSE, the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange, it's not something that companies alone invest in. It's open to individuals like you and I to invest on the Eastern Caribbean Securities Exchange.
Financial Information Month is being held under the theme, Conducting and Protecting Your Business in a Digital Environment. Miguel said more Vincentians should grasp this opportunity and improve on the way they handle their finances. Persons are also asked to listen to radio discussions throughout this month to live discussions on various financial topics. Other activities include a walkathon, a financial fair, and charitable work for the elderly.
This is something that a charitable project that we are donating towards, and this is to put benches at the Golden Years, one of the Golden Years Center. You know, the Golden Years Center, these are the centers operated by the National Insurance Services for elderly persons, where they go daily to have activities to keep them occupied. So this charity outreach project would be to donate benches for the Golden Years Center.
Similar activities are being held across all other ECCB member states. International Global Cyber Day will be observed here on Friday, October 12th by accounting firm KPMG. The firm said this year it will be partnering with the Camden Park Secondary School for a community program which seeks to educate youth about the importance of cybersecurity. Global Cyber Day program focuses on topics that will affect school children in their everyday life and teach them valuable lessons on how to stay safe online. Cybersecurity professionals from KPMG St. Vincent will conduct 45-minute sessions with groups of students. They will focus on a number of topics including how to stay safe on social media, sharing personal data online, cyberbullying, and online gaming.